Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the April 22nd regular Des Moines City Council meeting to order. I will lead us in the pledge tonight. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bit of a delay tonight. Okay, let the record show that all council members are present. Council, in light of the events of this week that were very substantial, City Manager Matthias and I released a statement to both the city Facebook page and to our website. And at this time, I'd like to turn the meeting to City Manager Matthias for him to make comments and enter this into the record.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 days ago, our nation witnessed a judicial outcome that held a white police officer accountable for the murder of a Black man who had been detained by that officer. We are heartened that other police officers in his police department refused to support his murderous actions. We need to understand that yesterday was a moment in time. One action does not right the wrongs of 5 centuries. What it does do is set the course for justice, identify what police accountability must be. The real issue is that there should never need to be a trial like this, and yet unjustified killings of people of color continues. As we are proud of our nation that at the last we got it right, we are devastated when horrific actions by police leave people of color dead and injured. Let us commit to the end of these atrocities. In Des Moines, we are committed to doing the right thing, to not using excessive force, and to being accountable if ever there comes a time when police actions are questioned or result in harm to anyone. We seek to be a city that is part of the solution and not part of the problem. We are proud to note that our police department is reform-minded and has already taken steps to ensure we are in compliance with national and state police reform recommendations, as well as recommendations for reform brought forward by community groups in our state. We are grateful to the jury and witnesses who did the right thing. We commit to following their example and holding justice and accountability as the highest order of conduct in our city and society. Councilmember Bangs, you had comments to make?
I do. Thank you, City Manager. First, let me start with a simple quote from Erin Jones. She's a fabulous Black woman, consultant, education advocate, and politician. She simply says, as related to the decision yesterday or day before, let's all link arms. Several things went through my mind after hearing the 3 guilty verdicts leveled on the killer of George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, a former police officer. Of the many, many feelings and thoughts, here are a few I want to share. Justice in this one instance has been served. Still, there are so many others that need the same justice to be served. Pride in all those who testified for the prosecution, especially the police and the police chief. This verdict is simply just the beginning of the justice that must continue to be served when people of color, especially Black males, are threatened, afraid in their own country, and whose lives have been truly continued to be taken away. It's a transgression of human dignity and an unacceptable injustice when police are held to a different standard when committing wrongful harassment and in many instances, outright killings. Black people are exhausted. Think about that word. Exhausted living in fear of those who are meant to protect us. Our sons, brothers, husbands, uncles, and friends. We are exhausted. There is also extreme awareness that the effort to separate people of color into categories, Asians, Black males, Pacific Islanders, Hispanic, etc., waters down the injustices that are leveled on all people of color. Thus, Aaron's quote, "Let's all link arms." In numbers, there is strength and a larger, louder voice demanding accountability and justice across the board. Listen, all police across the country should not be condemned for the actions of those in their midst who are not fit to serve and have committed atrocities yet to be dealt with. I applaud those who spoke up and stood up for truth and justice. Hopefully they will have set the much needed example that will challenge their fellow officers, as well as people, all people, to do the same across this country. I want to leave you to think about this. Let's be clear. We said Black Lives Matter. We never said only Black Lives Matter. That was the media, not us. In truth, we know that all lives matter. We've supported those lives all throughout history. Now we need your and everyone's help. Black Lives Matter, for Black lives are in danger. Thank you, City Manager, and thank you, Mayor.
Is there any correspondence or written comment?
No, Mayor.
And no one has signed up to speak.
No.
Okay, and on the agenda tonight, we had a city manager report that was going to cover our summer programs update. But that's been moved to the May 6th agenda as staff continues to monitor COVID-19 and how the current status of the pandemic is impacting both our summer programs and events. So at this point, I will ask the clerk to please read the consent calendar.
Item 1, approval of vouchers. Item 2, contract with EHM Washington LLC to provide electronic monitoring services to municipal courts for indigent defendants. Item 3, Des Moines Activity Center interior flooring. Item 4, amendment number 2 to Washington Multi-City Business License and Tax Portal Agencies Interlocal Agreement, file local. Item 5, addendum number 1 to interlocal agreement for emergency dispatch services. Item 6, surface water capital projects construction contract award. Item 7, Port of Seattle Economic Development Partnership Agreement. And that concludes the consent calendar, Mayor.
Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? I see Councilmember Nutting's hand.
So moved as read.
Second. Oh, go ahead, Tracy.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Buxton. At this time, is there any item that a council member wishes to remove?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to pull item 7.
Okay. So at this time, we will be voting on items 1 through 6 as a block. So all those in favor of approving items 1 through 6 on the consent calendar, please raise your hand until I call your name. Councilmember Martinelli, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Bangs, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, Councilmember Buxton, and myself. That portion passes 7-0. Councilmember Harris, you have item 7.
Thank you, Mayor. I sent you all an email. I would like to strike one, I hope it's a very minor sentence from that grant application. The sentence says that in the past, the city of Des Moines has aligned its efforts with the Century Agenda. And I would simply like that removed. I don't think it's necessary to achieve the grant. The Century Agenda is the port's broad strategic goals, and underneath it, they have a number of more detailed objectives. And the email I sent you lists some of them, which include basically doubling the number of international flights and tripling air cargo. And I do not believe that the city of Des Moines should ever support increasing the number of flights over our city. So I ask you to remove that sentence from the application.
Are there any other comments? Councilmember, I see Councilmember Martinelli and then Councilmember Harris. I'm sorry, then Councilmember Buxton, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to state that I fully support this for the reasons that Councilmember Harris gave. Thank you.
Councilmember Buxton?
So I did receive that email and I can understand your concern. So I read over it carefully and thoughtfully again. And so I did see it, the addition of the word included in that paragraph defines and qualifies our alignment to the Century Agenda, and it does not include a present acquiesce to unmitigated growth. And so if you would prefer, I could read that, but just especially since it talks about in the past and the qualification of the word included, I felt like it's wordplay at this point, and that was a good qualification of where we stood. And so I'm not in favor of removing that.
Oh, I see City Manager Matthias. And then
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mayor. So first of all, I think what's important to understand is this is the acceptance of the award. This is not the application for the resources. Those have already been designated by the Port of Seattle, and this is simply the city going through literally a technical process to accept the resources. This is a little bit about the history of this. And in line with Councilmember Buxton, the Century Agenda it was established in 2012 to mark the 100-year anniversary of the port. One of the more important things about the port in the state of Washington is that this is one of the very few states that focuses economic development through ports. And I've called out multiple times in city council meetings the inherent conflict between the port being responsible for economic development and also being responsible for the airport. That seems like an inherent conflict to me. It always has. In the meantime, the port has given out 4 sets of grants, 4 series over the last 4 years. And the grant that we're receiving is a non-competitive grant. 38 other cities in King County received this without competition. So the logical end to Mr. Harris's comment is that the port has more money and we have less money, since we're not competing with anyone for these resources. The Century Agenda includes position Puget Sound region as a premier international logistics hub. And part of the growth and success of the business park is based on that. Goal 2 is advance this region as a leading tourism destination and business gateway. Clearly, the development of the marina is consistent with a tourism destination. Goal 3, responsibly invest in the economic growth of the region and all its communities. That's what this grant is designed to accomplish. Goal 4, be the greenest and most energy efficient port in North America. Goal 5, become a model for equity, diversity, and inclusion. Goal 6, be a highly effective public agency. So we know that there are challenges in our relationship with the Port of Seattle. And the problem is they're not a single purpose agency. So if it was only an airport, that would be one thing. But they're responsible under state code for multiple responsibilities. Okay, so the idea, the Century Agenda what we're implying in this and what we've done in the past is those aspects that relate to us, economic development, destination, all those different things are things we can support, we mutually support. And the real challenge to the airport is going to come through the Sustainable Airport Master Plan environmental documents that give the city legal standing to object to the growth of the airport. But this grant gives us no strength to object to the growth of the airport and throws away whatever dollar amount the port is willing to provide. Other cities have taken that, Burion's taken that and developed their Northwest facilities similar to our business park. Other cities have done other things with it. And I think the things that we want to accomplish with it are extremely valuable to the future of the city. So I'm not sure what exactly would be accomplished by adopting Councilmember Harris's position, since the application has already been received and approved by the port. So anyway, thank you, Mayor. Those are my comments.
And then I have Councilmember Harris.
Symbols matter. If the acceptance of the grant is not contingent upon that one sentence, it should not be in there. You know, all governments have to deal with things they don't like. When I was in college, for example, the government of the United States had to deal with South Africa, but we decided we did not want to buy Krugerrands. That's a fairly broad example, but you just don't want to do things like that if you don't have to. And we don't have to, it seems to me, in order to obtain that grant. So why do it? It shouldn't be that big of a deal simply to strike that one sentence. Thank you.
So I think if I'm hearing correctly, though, the grant's already been submitted and awarded, so it's not in our possession to strike. We would have to recall the document. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, I'm not quite sure exactly what the process would be. I'm sure the port would have to get over their surprise for a few days that we were actually trying to change language in a grant that had already been awarded.
Okay. So at that point, is there another council member that wishes to make a comment? Okay, seeing none. We are currently voting on the amendment that Councilmember Harris is requesting. All those in favor of Councilmember Harris's amendment, please raise your hand and hold it up until I call your name. I see Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Martinelli. All those opposed, please hold up your hand until I call your name. Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, Councilmember Buxton, and myself. Okay, this fails. 2 in the favor, 5 opposed. So now I go back to the item number 7 as it is stated in our agenda. And that motion is to ratify and approve the Port of Seattle Economic Development Partnership Agreement S-00320657. Is there a motion to move that forward?
So moved.
Motion was made by Councilmember Bangs, seconded by
Second, Tracy.
Tracy Buxton. All those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. 5 in favor. Those opposed? Councilmember Martinelli and Councilmember Harris. This passes 5-2. And that completes our consent calendar for tonight. At this time, we will be taking a 5-minute recess and moving into executive session. The purpose of the executive session is to discuss the performance of a public employee under RCW 42.30.1101G and a real estate acquisition under RCW 42.30.1101B. The executive session is expected to last 75 minutes. We will resume our regular meeting at the conclusion of the executive session, time permitting.